like just yesterday, the internet was singing the praises of pop star Bruno Mars after announcing a tour with Cardi B. It was also just yesterday that that same internet stuck its fangs into him with accusations of cultural appropriation. Fans accused Katy Perry of appropriating gay culture after telling Lionel Richie and Luke Bryan that the term wig, you know, yes wig, you snatched my wig, that it wasn't for, quote, them in a recent episode of American Idol. And if you joined us last week, we kind of sort of dragged Netflix for giving Rachel Dolezal, the ultimate culture vulture, an entire documentary about her transracial identity. But the question remains, how can people outside of the culture participate in the appreciation of culture without appropriating that? We get into that, plus play a game of your favorite's problematic, and as always, we'll be reading your questions and comments. This is Teen Vogue Take. I'm Tiffany Bender.
I'm Brittany McNamara.
I'm Gabe Regato.
I'm Jessica Andrews.
And I'm Vera Papasova.
Okay, so since he set the scene in 2010, I feel like people are constantly dragging Bruno Mars for cultural appropriation, but he's constantly admitted that I am inspired by R&B, funk, jazz, all these other cultures. He's slayed 2 Super Bowls and also has nabbed 10 Grammys. So Gabe, tell me, as the entertainment editor here, why are people always so mad at Bruno?
So yeah, you see this conversation on Twitter creep up every so often. So the most recent one is because the video from The Grapevine went viral, has like over 3 million views I think now on just this viral video on Twitter, discussing Bruno Mars, saying that he's a cultural appropriator, and kind of discussing how, you know, in today's climate we want black music but not from black artists.
Bruno Mars 100% is a cultural appropriator. He is racially ambiguous. He is not black at all, and he plays up his racial ambiguity to be able to do what Jameer says, cross genres and go into different places.
Jess, what are your thoughts on the idea that people want black culture but not from black people?
I think that's 100% true. And you know, I don't personally think that Bruno Mars is cultural appropriating because he does give credit and because he hires people of color, but I do think because he's racially ambiguous, it's easier for him to climb the ranks than it would be for a black artist.
And you just bring up, like, he has talked about in the past. In a 2017 interview with Latina Magazine, he said that in my world, black music means everything. And he cited all the parts, you know, rock, jazz, R&B, reggae, funk, doo-wop, hip-hop, Motown, that black people created at all. So he's always kind of talked about it, you know, as opposed to other artists, not necessarily.
Yeah. Vera, I know you have a very unique point of view in terms of cultural appropriation. Could you just break down your theory a little bit for the folks?
Unique. Okay, yes. So basically, you know, does Bruno Mars have the music education to know the history of R&B music? Yes, as Gabe has, you know, he cited that quote, a lot of music that we have now comes from black music, and that's something that people talk about all the time.
Speaking of whether or not people are stealing music, Madam Miley Cyrus. Brittany, can you tell the folks at home about the tweet we laughed at so hard this weekend?
Right, so over St. Patrick's Day, Miley tweeted a video of herself jumping around and dancing in a St. Patrick's inspired onesie.
You have also.
Which I wear every day.
Yeah.
They see me in the office all the time. And she was dancing to Migos, and she tagged Offset and Cardi B.
I think that's such a huge deal because if you remember in a Rolling Stone article, a very controversial Rolling Stone article, she was promoting her country album and she had said more or less, I can't listen to that anymore, that being hip hop. That's what pushed me out of the hip hop scene a little. It was a little too much my Lamborghini, my Rolex. And so I think people are upset because she has songs that sound just like that.
Right. She was doing the same thing when she was dipping into hip hop, and
Right.
when it didn't serve her any longer, she stepped away and tried to rebrand herself. But she didn't seem to have a problem when it was her doing these things and saying these things. She only had a problem when it was someone else, perhaps
Right.
someone of color, a black person.
Yeah.
So.
And then her country album went double glass, and now she's back. Katy Perry on that episode of American Idol told Luke Bryan and Lionel Richie after a fan, you know, she had an interaction with a fan of the LGBT community, that the term wig wasn't for them. And so if you don't know, wig is, you know, comes from the gay community, the ballroom culture. Yes, wig, you snatched my wig, my edges, all this stuff. And Katy kind of not only had a moment with the fan, which was understandable, but she also then told people that they weren't allowed in that circle.
I don't think that she has authority to say whether, you know, someone can participate in a culture that she's not in.
Right.
And I think that Katy Perry is a habitual line stepper, when it comes to cultural appropriation. This is just the latest example, but she's done it before with various cultures, and she always apologizes, but does she really ever get it?
Right.
That's
and
the question.
That's the problem, is she's always apologizing, which is great. You should apologize when you appropriate someone's culture, but you also shouldn't appropriate the culture in the first place, and it's about that education. And she seems to be apologizing, but not quite getting the education.
I do think it's interesting because, you see early on in her career, she has some song like "You're So Gay," and now she's dipping into. She has done a lot of work with the LGBTQ community. I don't want to undermine that, but it is what is her license to then use this terminology? And it was just so funny because then she went on late night and explained the wig, I think, to Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
And I was like, what weird universe am I on? This is not VH1. And then I'm sure everyone's mom is texting their child what's a wig?
Hello.
And so it is a question is she the best person to be explaining that to the masses?
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't think so. I don't think we think so either. But yeah, so what is her license though is kind of the question though.
Okay, so when is cultural appropriation valid and when are we overreacting?
I hesitate to ever say that someone's overreacting when it comes to cultural appropriation because people deserve to feel how they feel about something. And, there's always the angry black woman stereotype that comes up with this. It's okay to be angry if it makes you angry. But for me personally, I think that when people give credit, and when they actually employ people of color, then to me it's not cultural appropriation, then it's celebrating a different culture. But you see multiple times with Katy Perry, like I said, with Iggy Azalea, where you're participating in a culture and you're kind of shutting people of color out of it, and that to me always rubs me the wrong way.
And I think, before Brittany was making a point about how, Katy Perry apologizes, but maybe she's not necessarily getting the education that she needs to kind of stop habitually crossing the line.
Habitually line stuffing.
Yes, habitually line stuffing. I love that. I love that. But seriously, every time something like this happens, we have this important admonishment. We're calling someone out, but we focus so much on canceling them that we sometimes miss having a teachable moment. And if you're part of the community that's being appropriated, be mad. Everyone can be mad. If you're part of that community, that's it. That's valid. It's fine. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So if you're an ally and you're mad and it's not necessarily your culture being appropriated, talk about this because talking about it is what is going to help some of these racial tensions, move forward and we can get closer to having racial equality.
Yeah, and also it makes the conversation more productive. Like you said, it's not just about canceling. All right, well, speaking of canceling, it's time to play my favorite game. Your fave is problematic. Gabe,
yes,
you got a good one this week.
So one of my favorite Netflix series is The Crown. Tells the story of a younger Queen Elizabeth II. And it stars Claire Foy and Matt Smith. And to be a show about the Queen, it came out that Claire was actually being paid less than Matt during the first season, which during this era of Time's Up and gender pay disparity, it's really not great that a show about the Queen is happening.
And the Queen was being underpaid.
Yes.
Yikes.
Less than her male co-star. But thankfully, the production company behind the show actually did come out, and it wasn't necessarily on the actors, it was on them, and they acknowledged that it was their fault. Because Claire and Matt were getting all these questions about it, but it was essentially on the production companies. And then also, because there was such a frenzy, now they've also owned up to it and are now made a statement essentially saying that they will work to change this, essentially.
Are they going to pay her more is the bottom line there.
Right. All right, thank you for that, Gabe. Make sure you guys at home are dropping down your problematic faves of the week and we'll read them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll join you next week. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Bye.